Today we're going to talk about how to solder DB25 shunts. We're going to start off with some 14 gauge solid copper wire, and we're just going to strip the insulation off of it to get to the bare copper. Now if you're going out to buy wire, you have to make sure you get the right stuff. Magnet wire may look like bare copper wire, but it's actually coated in a thin clear lacquer, so make sure that you actually get bare copper wire. Also, we're going to be using some Kester number 186 flux. This is a no clean flux, so it won't leave any corrosive residue behind. Now we're just going to pop that wire piece right in between the contacts on the DB25 connector. Should fit in there nice and snug. Okay, now I'm going to apply a little bit of flux. And again, this flux just helps keep the joint clean. Make sure that our solder wets well. Now we're going to wet the soldering iron tip. Make sure I get good thermal contact between the soldering iron tip and the joint that I want to solder. And now I can go ahead and start heating up the joint and adding a little bit of solder to it. Now remember, you want to heat the joint and add the solder to the hot joint. You don't want to heat the solder. It won't make a good joint. Now sorry about that, my batteries died. Here we are back in business. Now that big piece of copper wire is going to act as a giant heat sink. So you're going to want to keep your soldering iron in one place for a little while until that whole piece of copper wire gets good and hot. And then you can start moving along, soldering each contact point individually. And notice how well the solder is wetting the joint right now. It's flowing nice and easy. It's not bunching up or globbing up anywhere. Now you can see how well the solder is flowing here. Notice if I move the soldering iron backwards, the solder just follows the heat. That's really what you want. You want to be able to see the solder following the heat of the iron as you move the iron through the joint. And now I'm going to go back and just touch it up, make sure I have a good joint all the way around. And pretty much just like that, you have your shunt soldered in a pretty small amount of time and with a very small amount of solder. There's a high contrast picture. Maybe you can see a little bit better how our joint turned out. Well, thanks for watching.